This inquiry started back in last June or May, and so Daniel's predecessor, Pamela Maslowski, who's since retired, did review an inquiry from Mr. Salazar back in June, in which she reviewed a partial site plan, and Mr. Salazar was kind enough to provide that to us for review. In which case, she did verify that the proposed pergola that had been presented to her met setback and height requirements. And there may be some details, and then Mr. Salazar may bring them up in regards to whether the height was accurate within a foot or so or not. But what she did not have at that time, and I want to be very clear, and I've spoken actually with Ms. Maslowski, was that she did not have a full plot plan, which indicated the lot coverage proposed. So what was presented to you as a design review board application occurred a few months later, was submitted, I believe, in November and brought to you in December for approval. However, it was at the time that staff reviewed the plot plan that we noted that the maximum lot coverage of 45% had been kind of manually stricken out, and that the pergola that was proposing to take the lot coverage above the 45% maximum coverage allowed by the planned development ordinance that had been adopted by the city council in the early 2000s. So what Mr. Salazar would like to do is, this is actually an appeal for an interpretation. So the next step after that was, what do I do? How do I get this pergola that I want? Mr. Salazar, do I do a variance? I don't think I need a variance. I think, based on code, R16 allows me to go up to 50% lot coverage. And so what we went through, and I'm going to go ahead and start to screen share, if you will, here we go. Hold on, I'm on my baby laptop, so give me a second. My screen's like 10 inches big. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of all go through this together. And again, I want to thank Mr. Salazar for being, quite respectful to the process. He's been nice to work with. He's been quite attentive and trying to get this to move along. But what we've come to is a disagreement. And the disagreement comes to this. I prepared the zoning interpretation on behalf of the city manager, who is the zoning administrator, as I'm generally the kind of the go-to in regards to especially plan development zoning. You need to understand the premise of what a plan development is. The developer of the Village of the Greens came to the city and said, hey, I want to build this master plan community. And in your zoning code, you have a number of zoning districts. I need to do a plan development because those zoning districts don't fit the bill for what I want to accomplish. And so what I want to do is I want to do plan development zoning, which is customized zoning, very specific to what they want to do. So they proposed a significant development plan that goes with the plan development, which establishes a number of development standards, one of which was very specifically included with lot coverage. So what was presented to you in December was an effort to assist Mr. Salazar to get a pergola approved. Let me see if I can make this window a little bit larger so you can see more of it. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy with my screen. I'm trying to make it so you can see more of my staff report on this baby laptop I'm using. So the history behind the pergola was that he actually has enough available lot coverage to still build somewhat of a pergola. The unfortunate part for Mr. Salazar that we came to the conclusion of, at least at staff level, was that it would not be quite as large as he'd like. What he'd like to do would exceed the 45% lot coverage. There is no provision to mix and match a plan development zoning, which is in and of itself a zoning district, with kind of cherry picking R16 development standards, which were really intended for 6,000 square foot lots. What the developer did when they did the villages was they did much larger lots and zoned them R16, but then they specifically tailored development standards that were suitable for larger lots. So you wouldn't have the appearance of overbuilding lots. When you have an R16 size lot, it's anticipated that you're going to need to cover quite a bit of that lot to accomplish a reasonably sized home and other amenities, including attached and detached shade structures. Whether they're attached or detached actually doesn't really make any difference. I know Mr. Salazar disagrees with that, but the intent of lot coverage and the premise of lot coverage is that how much of your lot are you covering? Whether it's attached or detached doesn't make any difference as to how much you're covering. You're either covering 45%, you're either covering 50%, or what have you. To give you some context of what the builder was able to basically talk the council into, was that they got a 45% lot coverage on an 11,000 square foot lot. Had he been in a standard zoning district, he wouldn't even be able to have the house that he currently lives in because it would be well over the lot coverage of the standard zoning district. So I get his frustration in regards to, well, in R16, it says I can have up to 50, but that's correct. If he had straight R16 zoning, he could have 50% lot coverage, but that's simply not the case. So legally speaking, the zoning interpretation that I prepared has been reviewed by the zoning administrator and by Joe Estes, our legal counsel, and been deemed correct from a legal standpoint. And so I feel strongly that we don't try to reinterpret what a plan development means. Plan development is not like some casual overlay. It's actually a zoning district. So he doesn't have true R16 zoning. He has plan development zoning that was based on R16 and specifically tailored for his oversized 11,000 square foot lot with a maximum lot coverage of 45%. And if I may, the only avenue I see for him to go from here is one, pull a building permit for a smaller pergola that fits the lot coverage. Two, request a variance, but obviously he would have to show that he has a hardship. What's his hardship to have a larger pergola? Or three, he would need to literally file for a major PUD amendment to amend the lot coverage requirement for his lot size of 11,000 square feet, which would be quite the undertaking. And I imagine, noticing thousands of residents for such zoning action would be a significant effort to do over pergola. So what we would ask is that you would uphold the zoning administrator interpretation rather than grant the appeal, which would reverse the interpretation. It would set, in my opinion, and in my 25 years of experience in working with plan developments, it would undermine the zoning ordinance intent of plan developments. The developer already received a significant package of deviations from code requirements. And even to get to 45% was pretty significant for an 11,000 square foot lot. So that's where we stand. He disagrees with us, and that's why we're presenting it to you today. But, as the planning consultant for the city of Litchfield Park, I feel very strongly about this, and that almost reversing the interpretation would by default literally be almost amending without council action the plan development zoning approved for the property, which I'm not certain would even be legal. And I think that would be the concurrence of our legal counsel. I don't know that it would even be within the power of the Board of Adjustment to do so, because it would almost constitute an amendment to the zoning case. That's how we've always done it in the past. I've done probably dozens of amendments to PDs and other communities, and we've always had to go through council to do that action. Whether it's lot coverage, whether it's setbacks, whether it's building heights, anything that was established specifically in the zoning in a PD is what sticks. So that's where we're at. And I'm happy to answer questions. And obviously, Mr. Salazar will have the opportunity to speak. It's not a matter of, whether he has good taste or if he has a beautiful home or if he's a nice guy. Obviously, he's been great through the process and he's a lovely home. It's just a matter of, unfortunately, he has a very large single level home. And as typical, when you have a large single level home on a lot, it takes up a lot of your allowable lot coverage. So when you want to do stuff like add pergolas and other shade structures, you're not left with much margin. And AV Homes knew it, and they put 45% right on his plot plan. So he was pretty much limited with that.
Do any of the board members have any further questions for Mr. Sanks before I give the applicant a chance to speak?
I have a question, if I might. So Jason, with a plan development ordinance, then if anything is not covered in the plan development ordinance, is it then by default covered based on whatever that, like for example, in this case, the R16 zoning, or how would that typically be handled?
That's an excellent question. So when a plan development ordinance is completely silent on an aspect of a development standard, you could seek guidance from the zoning code for that. Let's say general regulations, right, is one thing. However, what they did for the 11,000 square foot lots, as you see in your packet, is they established specific development standards, which included lot coverage. And lot coverage is considered kind of an absolute. So they did establish 45% specifically through the PD. Had the PD been silent on the aspect of lot coverage, I would agree with Mr. Salazar, then we could default to a lot coverage established by the code itself. But because the PD was specific and specifically tiered by lot size, as I've stated in the staff report, they were very particular as to how they did it. Whether they delineated between attached or detached made no difference. Zoning lot coverage is an absolute.
So, okay, so follow-up question. So I was looking at, like, you know, the different zoning requirements, and in the, obviously, like the kind of standard underlying ones, where it gives maximum lot coverage for the zones, it's not qualified by anything. It just says maximum lot coverage and then 25% or whatever it is. And then even in the ordinance that apparently was for phase 1 of this development, it looks like it's the same verbiage. It was just maximum lot size and then a percentage. But in this phase, for some reason, it says maximum lot coverage dash enclosed structure and attached shade structure slash, you know, I'm sure you know that. So I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are on why that stipulation might have been added and what that means. Because I guess where I'm going, it seems
That's
like
a good
maybe,
question, and we looked
go
at that. AB Homes actually, what happens is when you're a home builder, you usually have a selection of home product that you believe will fit the target market for the development that you want to build in, which would have been Litchfield Park Villages, right? And so they had a home product that they wanted to build on these lots. And so that they wanted to do is they came back and amended the zoning, and they specifically tailored it so that they could say, you know, those development standards were listed by lot size. They were tiered by like 7,200 and 9,000, 11,000 square foot lots. So they came back to us and asked us for really actually more. And then they got very specific with it. And that was their negotiation process with the city council at that time to obtain up to 45% lot coverage, which is actually a significant amount for an 11,000 square foot lot. You typically see in the range of 30 to 35% on a lot that size. They got 45%, but the trade-off was it's a lovely community. They provided a lot of nice amenities. They provided nice park spaces. They had attractive architecture on their homes. And so that was what the trade was. Council accepted that and they adopted an ordinance accordingly. But remember, AV Homes is the one that proposed it and council accepted it.
That's actually not correct, Jason. That document that you're referring to was provided by Toll Brothers. And Rachel Dudley, your question is spot on, which I thank you for raising it.
So the chair will ask you to present here in a moment, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. We need to keep our record clean. So in a minute, we'll be calling on you, but we can't have people just talking. For one thing, we don't know who's talking necessarily. So if you hold on for just a second, I will be giving you your opportunity. Are there any other questions of Mr. Sanks from any of the board members?
I'm sorry, I still have one more follow-up. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So
ahead.
I guess I'm just curious, like, then, do you feel like what is, I mean, you must, I guess, but what's written there, that includes accessory structures then for that maximum lot size, like where it says like enclosed structure and attached shade, like blah, 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 that stipulation, that includes accessory structures?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Sanks from any of the board members? Okay, now at this point, I will give Mr. Salazar his opportunity to comment on anything Mr. Sanks said or anything that Ms. Dudley had to say.
Thank you. And I do apologize I just wanted to correct that. So AV Homes is kind of a red herring here. Although they built my home, the document that we are in dispute about was submitted by Toll Brothers. And Rachel Dudley's question was spot on. I have talked to Toll Brothers. They're not willing to go on the record because there's nobody there from 1996 still working there that has knowledge of this document that they submitted. But as was couched to me by their acquisition manager is, you guys are arguing over a housing density proposal that was specific to housing density and not specific to be comprehensive to override the whole code. Now, Ms. Dudley asked, this thing says for the enclosed structure and anything attached to it will not exceed 45%. it does not trump the rest of the code that says total lot coverage for all structures will not exceed 50%, okay? Now, the other thing is that, and I understand Jason's got a lot on his plate, Pam Maslowski did review the structure for lot coverage. And if you refer to the email that I provided that is attached to the agenda, I believe, it says, you do not exceed lot coverage. So based on that, I moved forward to this project. This is not the first time I've been through a construction project. I would have not just submitted something to the design review board without doing the homework first. Based on the assurances from her that I met setback and lot coverage, I moved forward with it. Now the city is reversing a decision. Quite frankly, if it had not been for COVID, this thing would have been in my backyard already, and I wouldn't even be arguing about this because it would have went through the design review board while Pam was still sitting as the advisor to it. It would have been approved. It would have already been built. But COVID being what COVID is, people got sick and things got delayed. So specifically, the Toll Brothers document applies to, and just from a simple language standpoint, the enclosed structure, covered patios, and things that are attached to it. If it's not attached, it does not trump the rest of the code, and the 50% applies. If I came to the board and said, I want to build something that's under 100 feet, but it's 25 foot high, you'd say, you can't build it. Why? Because there's a restriction to the height requirements. And if I came back to you and told you, well, the Toll Brothers document doesn't mention it, so it doesn't have a restriction on it, or it restricted thus, you'd tell me that's a pretty heavy stretch. So applying the specific description of density and claim that it replaces the rest of the code is kind of a stretch in my opinion also. So I meet the setbacks. It's not greater than 25% of my backyard. It doesn't exceed 50%. And I feel that I'm within my rights to build it.
Anything further you'd like to add, sir?
Chair, when the opportunity presents itself, I do need to respond to a couple of points that were made by the applicant, please.
I'm sorry, I'm new to this. I didn't unmute. I just want to make sure that we understand that when Pam reviewed what I sent her, she specifically stated that I did not exceed lot coverage.
Okay.
That is all.
I'm having issues with my computer at this moment. While I work on trying to resolve that, if I can prevail upon I'm assuming you can hear me, I prevail upon the vice chairman to go ahead and take over.
Okay. Okay, I'll try. So we've covered the open statements. Are there any discussion? Is there anybody from the public that wish to speak on this? Daniel, was there any request to speak?
No, there were not.
Okay. Any more questions from board members for the staff or for the applicant?
I would just say, Chair, as the staff member, I do need to address a couple items if I'm able to. If the chair so or vice chair so wishes, I need to respond to a couple items.
I believe I'm back now, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I spoke with Pam Maslowski specifically, and just to clarify, Mr. Salazar, she was the planning director for 25 years or 20 years. I've been the planning consultant for the city since 2013. So whether it was Pam or whether it's Daniel, I still would have been the same person that would have reviewed your case. Pam provided you preliminary direction, and she also provided a caveat in her email based on the information provided. This is the information I'm providing back to you. I spoke with her specifically regarding your case, and she concurs that your maximum lot coverage was 45%. If indeed she misspoke, it would have been a mistake, and it is not held. It's not permissible to proceed, with a mistake. Second of all, I have reviewed your case at length with our legal counsel. I understand you've spoken with somebody related to the builder from 20 some odd years ago, and I appreciate you doing your homework, but I would suggest to you that our legal counsel concurs with the zoning interpretation and that the plan development stands as is written and as was requested, whether it's Toll Brothers or AB Homes. I remind you that your plot plan presented to the design review board was prepared by AB Homes, although the actual zoning action that occurred prior to that may have been by Toll Brothers. There's been a number of builders in your development, but it's neither here nor there. It's the development standard is the development standard regardless of the builder.
Do any of the board members have any further questions of Mr. Sanks?
I guess I'm sorry. I'm still struggling with like the language here because, all the previous codes and ordinances don't have that stipulation of enclosed structure and attached shade structures. And so Jason, could you kind of clarify for me, or maybe, I don't know if you, during your conversations with the lawyer, if he clarified like accessory structures are included in one of these categories or something? Because I guess I certainly do not want to change set a precedent or change like the undermine any future codes. But like, to me, I'm not really seeing accessory structures covered under that. And I just feel like actually the builder may have purposely done that because they wanted to build the maximum size home, and it was some sort of like strategic.
That's correct. Well, what happened in the early 2000s in the first housing boom was that a number of developers had kind of a prepackaged set of development standards that worked for the set of homes that they had proposed. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to make sure that they wanted to present to council the best foot forward. And so, like I said, Mr. Salazar is a lovely home, right? And so they had a maximum livable area. And then they have the garage, which could be 2 or 3 or even 4-car tandems. But they also wanted to make sure that in the lot coverage, so when you're looking at a number as high as 45% on a large lot, it can be a little bit daunting for people that are used to seeing something more nominal, like a 30 or 35%. We're saying, well, 45% also includes the shade structures and outdoor amenity areas and things like that. What we've seen in the last 20 years is that some of the shade structures that have occurred for our amenity areas, the desire for those amenities have become detached versus attached. But that doesn't necessarily change the underlying purpose of what lot coverage is meant to do, and that is to not overbuild the lot with basically cover or roof. So yes, the type or desire of what shade structures looks like has changed a little bit in the last 20 years. You see more pergolas, you see more detached ramadas, as opposed to the typical 10-foot by 12 or 10 to 20-foot attached backyard covered patio. So I wanted you to understand that their intention wasn't like, let's find the loophole. Oh, wait, this says detached versus attached, so this must mean something different. Lot coverage means how much of the lot are we willing to cover? And that's why I'm being very specific to that, not because, we're trying to like penalize somebody, but because that's the way things were done in 2003.
I totally get it, but I guess I'm just really stuck on the fact that like their verbiage was added to the ordinance, so it wasn't like a copy and paste error. Like somebody added that verbiage that says enclosed structure and attached shade structures, because before it didn't say anything; it just said maximum lot coverage, full stop.
Right,
So
and if I may, if you look at the full ordinance, the even larger lots were zoned R16 and had more limited lot coverage. But imagine if you were to take that same logic and say, well, they also get 50%, but they're on a 17,000 square foot lot. I mean, that would be nearly unheard of in a planning book. And I've reviewed hundreds, if not maybe over 1,000 zoning cases where you will never see 50% lot coverage on a 17,000 square foot lot. I mean, that would be huge.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was tiered. So they tiered it on purpose. And whether they attached or detached was really a matter of taste at the time, rather than there's two sets of types of lot coverage. I get your confusion. I get why it can be confusing, but I wanted you to understand that the desire and type of housing product and amenities that go with that has somewhat changed. And we're seeing more detached structures in later years. And in newer codes, we do address it.
Yeah.
We do address it. So anyways, that's the history behind it. And
Okay, but I guess I just
think
think
that's
like,
probably the best I can offer, except
yeah.
that I mean, you see the tiering was very specific based on lot size.
Yeah,
And so
I
they were
mean,
very concerned about not overbuilding lots. And Litchfield Park has long been known to try not to overbuild their lots.
totally. And I mean, I'm completely sympathetic to that. I don't want the lot to be overbuilt, but I'm just really struggling because I think like my job here is kind of to be a computer program and take this program in and spit out the outputs. And like, I'm struggling there with that additional stipulation and what that means, I guess, because, you know, maybe it was an oversight, you know, and we didn't mean to actually not include something, but it just seems like, why is there extra words there if they didn't mean for extra words to be there? I don't know. I'm struggling.
Yeah, it is quite a long history.
I have a question. In the plan development agreement, it states 45%, correct?
Yes, for this lot size. For
Okay.
11,000 square foot lots, it was limited to 45%. If you go to the small lots, it goes up to 50%. It was very specific.
So, and you're kind of saying this kind of plan development agreement kind of it overrides our underlying zoning code, right? It's its own code.
Yes, no,
Really?
it doesn't, it is its own zoning district. The R16 was used as a guide to build the PD zoning.
Okay.
Okay, if I can make a quick comment, it just seems to me that part of our role here, we're looking at documents, things that were done 20 years ago. I don't think we can speculate about what something may or may not mean. I think what we're left with are the development agreement and what was done, and there it is. And staff has taken certain positions. So I think for me anyway, unless we have something that would indicate that there was a mathematical error or whatever, you know, there at some point a lot size is a lot size, and it seems to be that's what we have. So that would be my thoughts. At this point, I think it would be good to give the applicant the last bite at the apple, if you will. So, sir, if you would like to make any additional comments, please feel free to do so.
Hey, thank you. I'm still struggling with controls here. If I attended more of these meetings, I would.
Your video and your audio is excellent, so you're doing fine, Mr.
Thank you.
Seffer.
So I want to really give a high five to Rachel. Thank you for asking those questions, and respond to the chairman and the other member. The chairman just made a statement that said that all we have to go on is the documents. The Tolles Brothers document is succinct. It is applicable to enclosed structures and attached structured covered patios. It does not override the other zoning requirements. There are still zoning requirements that I have to comply with, that the Toll Brothers document is moot. It was not designed to be the comprehensive document. It was designed to provide specificity for the home that Toll Brothers and then AV was going to build. It does not trump the rest of the zoning requirements. The rest of the zoning requirements stated for primary buildings, i.e. enclosed structures, attached shade structures, covered patios, and other structures, I have to comply to the 50% standard. So we've got apples and oranges, and just because you want to choose the apple over the orange doesn't mean you can lump them together. In specificity, using the precision of the English language, it's two different descriptions. It's my enclosed home and what the builder attached to it, or I choose to attach to it. And then the rest of the zoning requirements apply to primary buildings and other structures in which it specifies I cannot cover more than 50% of the lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. At this point, would one of the members care to make a motion?
Can I ask a question real quick first? It seems like, I don't remember if it was this one or last month, but is one of the potential motions that we could make would be to send it to council if we just feel like we can't.
I can address that. No, Board Member Dudley, it's this is a quasi judicial process. That's not a legislative process. You're asked to interpret the legislation that the council has already acted on. To change that legislation, it must go through the council. You can still take action tonight and suggest, as consideration in the future, but it really is more of a recommendation of advice, if you will. Sorry, I had to slow my video. I'm in a facility where I had to leave, but yeah, I would suggest that the action tonight presented to you is to approve Mr. Salazar's appeal and reverse the ZA interpretation, or to uphold the interpretation, and he basically could file for permits for the smaller pergola that you approved and as part of the design review board motion in December.
I think for simplicity, the options are would either be a motion to reverse the interpretation of the zoning administrator, or a motion to deny the appeal and accept the interpretation of the zoning administrator.
Yes, sir. That's
Just to move things along, I believe that the intent of the lot coverage kind of, for me, it overrides whatever may have been left out or at cross purposes in the code. I think that, as stated, when you do a planned development agreement, there was a trade-off. They got more, and the city got, something that they wanted to. But for me, lot coverage is kind of a big thing. I don't want the neighborhood to get overbuilt, and I don't appreciate that a lot of people, even without permits or permissions, go and plunk things on their backyards. So for me, I would move to deny the request.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Is there a second to that motion? I will second the motion. We have a motion and a second to deny the appeal and accept the interpretation of the zoning administrator. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right, it sounds like we have 2 votes to deny the appeal, 1 in opposition. The motion to deny the appeal passes.
Is Mr. O'Connor here? Did he not vote?
Mr. O'Connor had to leave the meeting. He showed up so that we would have quorum for the continuance on the first case.
I am back on. I am going to abstain because I did not hear everything.
Oh, okay.
All right, at this point, I believe our next item is approval of the minutes of the April 7th regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Ledyard, can I say something very briefly? Am I understanding that you had a member absent that was needed to make a quorum and conducted business without a quorum?
No, that's not correct.
We had quorum, sir.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the April 7th regular meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. The next item is staff report on current events.
Chair, we don't have any current events regarding the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, any board members having any reports or current events concerning the Board of Adjustment? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn the Board of Adjustment and to go into the design review?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning the Board of Adjustment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. The Board of Adjustment is adjourned, and I will now turn the next meeting over to Chairman Charnetsky.
Okay. I'm downloading the agenda. Aye, there it goes. Okay. So go ahead and call to order this meeting for the Design Review Board for the City of Litchfield Park. And our first item of business are design plans for a new tile to metal roof conversion for 460 East Circado Lane. Jason, do you have your staff report on that?
I do, and thank you, Chair. And sorry, I have my video paused. I know you know what I look like, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can do what we do with the Design Review Board. Now, this is a relatively small item, but we did bring it to you because it's a long-standing policy that when there's a proposed change in roof styles, that we bring it forward to you. So on the front of this home, there's design plans for a new tile to metal roof conversion for 460 East Circado Lane. And I'm going to see here, I believe you should be able to see my screen. Please let me know if you can't. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to scroll down. Here we go. You can see across the front of the entry, there's this tile roof. And then in your full packet, you'll see they've got some charcoal pavers on the bottom. They're doing some remodeling and they have some trim paint, and they're wanting to change the S-tile roof to a premium metallic with what's called a 500 coating. And you'll see they've highlighted, they want the color weathered zinc, which is that charcoal color. And I presume that is intended to kind of blend in with the color of the pavers that are below, kind of give it that contemporary look. We've kind of seen this look before. In the profile view, or the plan view, I should say profile view, you can see the roof is approximately 11 feet tall at the top of the ridge. They show the columns, and more or less you can see the area in plan view there that they'd like to replace with the metal roofing. Staff, it's a small item, but again, since it's a change in roofing material, we did want to bring it forward to you. They provided a number of applicants to clearly, a number of exhibits to clearly show what they'd like to accomplish, and the staff finds that it'll provide a fresh appearance, complement the trim colors, and those are the pavers below, and we support the project as submitted, and we recommend approval subject to the exhibits provided by the applicant.
Okay, thank you. It's pretty straightforward. Do any board members have any questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to speak or add anything to the staff report?
No, thank you. It's pretty straightforward. I just want it to look good.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. Would anyone like to propose a motion?
Sure, I'll propose that I move that we approve the application for the, what's the address here? 460 East Circado Lane, based off of the recommendations of staff.
Okay. I have a motion, a second.
Second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. It's approved.
All right.
Next item, approval of minutes. Would you like to motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, staff report on current events.
And thank you, Chair. I'll try to keep it brief. Just the big events that are occurring now are somewhat slightly related to design review, but more so, as you may know, due to the, I'll speak broadly, last month's Board of Adjustment meeting, the outcome of that was brought forward to council. So the council has asked staff to initiate a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to clarify language regarding the screening of non-principal structures. So staff is looking and developing language at this time that will be brought forward, and I would like to make sure that it's brought forward as a discussion item to the design review board in advance of, as part of the citizen review project or process, as it goes to P&Z and council for evaluation on whether or not we choose to adjust the language related to that, as well as a number of other prospective text amendments. These are in addition to the full code rewrite, which Mr. Williams, the city manager, has asked us to put on pause as we consider approximately 4 other text amendments to the zoning ordinance that we could try to sweep in with that. Lastly, as you may know, the general plan was ratified or approved by council and will be hopefully moving forward to the voters in August. That's it. You may be muted. I can't hear you, Chair.
Daniel, do you have anything to add for staff reports?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have any reports or current events? No? Motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
second,
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay.
You're welcome, sir.